Well, it's been another week, another $57 million growth in OUSD, I think. And we're back for our regularly scheduled community call. Today's agenda includes a few minor surprises that popped up this week, check in on the progress of our liquidity mining campaign, sprint planning, and then a follow-up to last week's marketing discussion. We'll also have time at the end of the call for anyone who would like to introduce themselves to say hello. Are there any other announcements or topics to include before we get started? I don't see any in the notes doc, but interrupt me if you think of something. And forgot to mention, I think everyone here is naturally in our Discord server, of course. But if you're not, you're watching a little bit later, you can join us, originprotocol.com/Discord. And if you are here, you can find the agenda and meeting notes in the Origin Dollar discussion channel. Posted those a few hours ago. So if there aren't any announcements, then there are a few surprises that I wanted to run through. Again, these are not major concerns, just things that I wanted to flag. The first was that I noticed that our DeFi Pulse adapter had broken. So we've been showing up like at the bottom of the DeFi Pulse leaderboard and have 0 TVL, according to them, as of mid-October. I think I decided that's because we upgraded our strategies and did not tell their repo that our strategies had new contract addresses. So I submitted a pull request to them this morning, and they're aware of it, and hopefully we'll get that merged quickly. Thanks to Coleman for helping me get that thread going with them so that they know it's on its way. Interrupt me if you have any questions or comments about that or anything else. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that thanks, Daniel, for noticing that the Keeper ran our rebase twice, I think on Thursday, and then it looked like it happened again this morning. And you had reached out to the Chainlink team. I didn't quite understand their response, but what do you know about that?
They have said that they will be deploying a change that should reduce the likelihood of that happening. It sounded more like it was happening now instead of they just talking about the change, but it's possible it'll keep on happening sometimes. We'll see, given the way they have their architecture set up for it. However, it does cost us some gas, but nothing bad happens when it runs. It checks to see if it's run recently, or if it's ready to run again, if it's the next day, and so it just immediately cancels out running if it sees that it's already been run. So nothing bad happens. We're just paying a little bit extra every time it runs extra.
Yeah, and I talked to the Chainlink team today, and they said they're pushing out new configs to make this more reliable going forward. So hopefully that is indeed the case.
Keeping an eye on it. The last surprise is very minor, but in our docs, when I went to get the strategy contract addresses, I noticed that we have a little column in a table there that describes how our auto allocation to the various strategies is configured. And that's a little out of date because we're no longer putting 100% of all funds in Compound. So that's like a tiny fix. I can do it, but I wanted to extend the invitation if anyone else is already in the docs making changes, or somebody wants to make a tiny pull request, that would be a nice opportunity to do that. So somebody feel free to volunteer, or I'll follow up on it later today maybe. And actually, on that topic, that allocation is going to change soon with the introduction of the convex strategy. So I guess maybe it begs the question, like, do we want to continue maintaining that column in docs? I think we'd like to get to a point where allocations are changing more rapidly.
Yeah, we can just nix that column. I think that's fine. But certainly we want to get to a point where we're being a lot more agile. The community can vote to and where we want to move the funds, etc.
And then other than not showing which strategies are the default for which coins, the actual coin allocation is live up to the minute on analytics at all times as to where the funds actually are.
Okay, well, if anybody's interested in removing that from the docs, then let me know. You're welcome to send me a direct message and I can point you to the right place, or I will follow up and do it later. Any other surprises or announcements or things to note before we talk about liquidity mining updates?
I'm just really happy about how liquidity mining has gone so far. That's a very happy, not exactly surprise, but something close to it. Anyway, back to liquidity mining.
Sure. No, I mean, we kind of moved away from our highlights, lowlights section of our agenda every week. But if we ever have anything that we want to recognize like that, I think it's good to do that. So I agree. Not surprising, but it feels good. Josh, do you want to tell us more about how well it's working?
I do. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared and I didn't get all the freshest numbers right before this. It's a little bit awkward because we have this call on Monday and all of the numbers roll over on Thursday at midnight UTC. So we have sort of partial data and the timing's a little awkward for this call. But the good news is the liquidity mining campaign is continuing to work. It's working very well. We're, and our efficiency as far as the ROI per dollar spent is going up. Finalized numbers from last week, we ended up at $30 of circulating supply for every dollar spent on the campaign, and this week it's up to $46 for every dollar spent. So the effectiveness of our campaign is increasing, which is great. One thing that's not so great is our bribe campaign has not been as effective this week as it was last week. Magic Internet Money are kicking our butts right now on the votes, despite us offering way higher bribes on the curve side. So haven't quite figured out why, or haven't looked into what campaign they're running. If they're offering incentives somewhere else, it could be happening on Convex side. I'm not sure. If anyone knows, I'd be very interested, but I haven't had time to go investigate. That is a little concerning because we put up a much bigger pool of capital and they're getting all the votes. So it's worth figuring out why that's happening. And then I guess the next objective for us is working on exchange listings. And so now that we have 9-figure TVL or circulating supply for USD, it's going to be a lot easier for us to start those conversations. Some of the things we're working on that front, obviously circulating supply is really important to exchanges, but it's not the only thing they care about. They also care about number of users, and they also care about trading volumes. And so there's some other things we want to do on those fronts to improve those numbers. For example, we need to have the right trading volume show up on CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko. That would help a lot. Right now, it's completely missing, so we're pushing to try and get that information to show up correctly. And so we're in touch with those teams to try and get that showing up. But I think we can do to increase both the number of users and the amount of trading volume is going to be very helpful for us as we kick off those conversations. Back to you, Micah.
Is someone in particular owning those conversations with CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko?
Coleman and I have been working on it. We reached out to them directly, and then they were like, they told us that the exchanges need to push that data. And so we're like, that doesn't sound right. They should be pulling it from the blockchain. But then we had the Curve team reach out to them on our behalf ask them to add the pool, so that hopefully they have more weight than we do.
Gotcha. Does anyone have any questions for Josh or anyone else about liquidity mining campaign that's underway? I also added a link to the meeting notes pointing to our most recent analytics report. Those come out every Monday morning US time, I think. And so you can see that in the notes on the analytics page, or you can send me a DM or someone else, and we'll get you on the email list so that you get those updates pushed to you. Next topic for us would be sprint planning. We, of course, we have 2-week engineering sprint cycle, and so we're wrapping up the current sprint on approximately, the day before Thanksgiving in the US, this Wednesday. And then we would start a new 2-week sprint on Thursday. So let's run through the existing sprint priorities real quick. The biggest one is the convex strategy that we want to launch, and I think we're tentatively waiting on that governance proposal to be formally approved, although it's shockingly affirmative right now. The next step, Daniel, on making that thing live.
We're going ahead and doing the deploy on it, and so when that goes through, we'll move funds into it and it'll be live.
And remind me,
and that has been executed, so that's gone through the multi-sig, and so we're ready to start moving test amounts into the contracts, and then once the governance proposal passes, then we'll actually move forward, moving real amounts of capital into it.
Initial amount of funds, or which stablecoins will be moved in?
It'll be a mix of all three coins.
Yeah, I think we said 100K of each stablecoin to start, and then assuming all our tests go well, and I'd push for us to move lion's share of our capital into those into that strategy, just because it's such a higher yield than anything else out there.
Cool. The next project that was on the current sprint was the transaction history view. This is done, I believe. There's some minor improvements we can make along the way, but Doman got this wrapped up late last week. So there's now a nav item if you're looking at your account on OUSD.com/swap was the page that you would initially land on. There's a new nav item at the top named history. And you can click that and see more of a bank account style view of your account with pagination, filtering, all kinds of stuff. So that's exciting. Thing that has slipped from the current sprint was the visual analytics dashboard that I think Doman's going to start working on. One thing that we had discussed there previously was doing something with Dune Analytics that might be a substitute or complementary. And I think, Josh, you were saying that they needed to do something on their end to be able to read OUSD contract data.
Yep. But I submitted all the stuff they need to do that. I haven't gone back to check whether they've done the indexing on it yet or not, but presumably that will be coming soon, if not already there.
All right. Thank you for that. And then the last thing that we had on the list, Daniel, was keeper monitoring. Is that something you're planning to work on?
Still pushing it off for another couple of weeks. We've got plenty in there, and I'm just watching the balance. But yeah, it's coming up, but not this next sprint.
Okay. There were also a few unplanned issues, of course, that always arise in the middle of a sprint. Doman knocked out all 3 of those, so we're in good shape there, I think. So don't need to spend a lot of time discussing the upcoming sprint. I don't think we can do that asynchronously, but I made a short list here, I think mostly inspired by Josh, to try to outline what the candidate projects might be. for the next 2 weeks. I brought back that visual analytics dashboard. Josh, I think you've been calling for better ledger support. What needs to be done there?
Yeah, so I think there's actually several things that we need to do. I think our Web3 connection stuff in general can be greatly improved. It's still quite infuriating trying to connect a ledger and mint OUSD. It's really painful, and wherever you go, try and go direct with the ledger thing, or you do it through MetaMask. A lot of it is probably to blame with on how Ledger is implemented stuff, or how MetaMask does it, but it's just really, really painful. It takes multiple attempts to get it to work. There's also things that are missing, like there's no way to like change your wallet or disconnect from the UI. So that would be another thing that would be nice. And then the other problem on the Ledger support is that we don't allow you to change which derivation path you use, whether you're using legacy or not, and you're not able to choose which wallet you want to do, which for people like me who have multiple wallets on the same ledger, it's very annoying. So we need to, so those are like very low-hanging fruit on things that we can do to make that better. And then there's also a Ledger app store now where you can we can add our app to the Ledger App Store, so that people who are using Ledger can do it directly from the Ledger Live app, and so that would be really cool. Could give us extra visibility. I think the work here is probably quite minimal, probably similar to what we did with Gnosis, where we just have to support their Web3 and change a little bit of the UI, but it's probably fairly easy. And then we can get into their app store and hopefully find some new users. But the Ledger, people who are using Ledgers, particularly as we're doing liquidity mining, these people are dealing with millions and millions of dollars. Most of them are going to be using Ledgers or Trezors or some sort of hardware wallet if they're managing that much money. So it's very worthwhile for us to focus on improving the experience for those users.
Makes sense. If there's anyone here who would be interested in getting involved in the engineering side of that, then please ping us in Discord or send one of us a message, and we'd love to get your help. Tom, it looked like you had been working on a possible pull request for sandboxing op-amp compound strategies. You or Frank want to talk about that for a minute? Let everybody know what's up.
Yeah, so the idea is we just implemented new strategies that are sort of.
You want to tell us about the proposal, the sandbox proposal?
Can you not hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I can hear you. Yep.
Good. So we have some new strategies that are outside of the mint and redeem flow. Right now, Compound and Aave are directly connected to the mint and redeem flow. So all those funds are sort of anyone can interact with them at the moment. The idea behind sandboxing some of these strategies is to make it so only we can interact with certain portions of the funds, which, the disadvantage is that it sort of breaks the availability of all funds at all times. But the advantage being they're sort of sandboxed apart from the rest of the funds, which can mitigate any possible attacks. So it's sort of just an idea that I've been thinking about. I think it would make me sleep a bit easier at night, but again, there is disadvantages to it.
It's essentially going back to the idea of a hot wallet and a cold wallet, and essentially giving OUSD a cold wallet.
Exactly, yeah.
One thing, playing off your idea, is Convex will be that way. Convex will not be directly hooked up to mints and redeems. So essentially, if we do go what Josh was just saying with the majority of funds in convex, that would basically be doing the same sandboxing thing.
Frank, are you back with us? Did you want to add anything?
Sorry, for some reason, Tom was muted for me. I apologize, Tom. No, I don't have much to add. I mean, I think I like the proposal. I think it's all about, but the drawback obviously is what we would do if there's a rush in withdrawals. So I was, wondering if anyone has ideas in terms of how we could automate maybe the rebalancing out of a sandbox to be able to fulfill the withdrawals if we have some mass withdrawals coming in.
In essence, part of Tom's proposal is keeping humans in the loop for any mass withdrawals, because in theory, a really mass withdrawal, like $50 million, might be a hacker or something. So while we need to keep it set to a level that there's plenty enough for lots of people to withdraw, but just the bulk of the funds not able to be withdrawn immediately.
Yeah, I wonder then at least we should have something in the UI, like if somebody tries to redeem and it's going to fail, we should, preemptively let them know as opposed to letting them spend gas, right?
Well, it would. Our UI will pick up on a possibly failing transaction and not go through, right? I believe.
Yeah, it would be good to double check, like to be like super explicit if that would happen.
Oh yes,
right?
we want to check and actually show
yeah
what the situation was before even trying to send or even clicking on the button on the transaction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What's the next step on making a decision about whether or not we implement this?
I mean, it kind of sounds like we've made the decision by default with the convex stuff, so it's I don't think we have to worry about it.
What percentage of funds in those strategies would be available for immediate withdrawal versus human intervention?
That just depends on how much actually goes into convex. If we did like 60% or 70%, that would still leave $30 million for immediate withdrawal.
Oh, I mean with the sandboxing the other two. Is it all or nothing, or is it?
No, it's whatever dial we want to set. They're just basically duplicate copies of the strategy that aren't automatically pulled out of.
Gotcha. Well,
yeah, I think from my perspective on this, I feel most comfortable with it if we do the sandboxing after decentralized governance, which is on the list anyway for us to implement that. And then that way, it's not just the origin team that is responsible for saving these funds. Anyone, the community can do it as well. And in that, I think that's the right approach. So just from a sequencing standpoint, we're decentralized on-chain governance is what we're heading towards. And that'll make me feel a lot more comfortable about this decision to sandbox funds like that. On talking about redemptions, though, we had the conversation in Discord around the buffer again. And that's probably worth discussing if we want to keep a buffer. Obviously, I've been pretty outspoken on saying we should take it to zero. My thinking being, redemptions don't happen that often, and two, I don't care that much about people who are trying to exit OUSD and optimizing their gas costs. I'd rather take, I care about our gas costs, but not to the point of hurting everyone else's APY who is staying in OUSD, which is what we're currently doing. by keeping that redemption buffer there. So curious what other people's opinions are, if anyone wants to argue for keeping the buffer, or if we should just go ahead and take it to 0.
I'm now in favor of taking it to 0. Before we were seeing small redeems, even when they were radically gas inefficient, we were still seeing redeems for $100 and $300. And now that the OUSD app intelligently routes those to the best liquidity places for swapping in and out, we basically get to have our lunch and eat it too, where OUSD redeeming is no longer basically used by anybody who's not hauling around millions, or it's not being used right now because as the supply increases. But so I think the need for that has gone away. I think there was a need for it, but I don't think we have a current need for it. So yeah, I'd be glad to axe it, and then as long as we're keeping it low, we could also possibly even axe the code from the contracts and at some future point too.
Yeah, it'd be nice to axe it from the contracts because it's quite complex.
Before Josh weighed in on that in Discord, I had encouraged Orion, who had started the conversation, I'd encouraged him or her to write up a governance proposal. Do we want to circle back on that, or Josh, do you want to write one up since it's sort of gone in a little different direction?
Sure, I'm happy to write up a proposal for that.
Okay, cool. So that was actually something further down the agenda that we were going to talk about. So coming back up to sprint planning, the other 3 projects that were on the list were decentralized on-chain governance, which Josh, you alluded to, better tooling for allocating funds and managing strategies, and then layer 2, which is a whole can of worms that we've talked about here before. Josh, is there anything you want to say about any of those 3 in terms of, what might be a priority for the coming 2 weeks, without getting too much into the weeds?
Yeah, so the plan on on-chain governance is to copy contracts that are already battle tested and being used, and then just reskinning it to match the Origins UI. Daniel, you were going to take a look at some of the contracts out there and see if you had any opinions on what the best starting point is for us. Did you make any progress?
I have not
on
yet.
that front?
But yes, this is my responsibility to go check it out, but I have not yet.
And if there's anyone else on the call that has any opinions around which governance system is best, this would be a great time to speak up. We're probably leaning towards Compound just because we know it the best, but certainly it's not the only one, and there's plenty of other protocols that are doing decentralized governance as well. So if anyone has any opinions on pros and cons, different contracts, we'd love to hear.
I agree with Compound. When I was poking at all of them, adding notifications and stuff, Compound was the most straightforward, the most simple, and you didn't have to worry about arbitrary code like with what was it, Aave? I think they used that DAO system. But point being, Compound was very transparent and easy to use. I liked it.
Yeah, we basically just be dropping in community voting in the place of our multi-sig, our current Origin multi-sig. So that'd be just switching over who owns all the contracts, basically from the multi-sig to community voting. And yeah, I like Compound's contracts. Everything I've read makes sense.
Josh, how soon would you like us to actually make the move to on-chain decentralized governance and have those contracts deployed?
I mean, as soon as possible, assuming we do our review of what's out there and make sure we're comfortable with Compound, then I think it's actually speccing it out and figuring out how much work's involved in making our own, what sort of tweaks we want to make to the UI, and then getting started on it. But I don't see any reason for us to delay. It's an important thing for us to get done.
Okay, and I assume that's higher priority than strategy, management, allocation, and layer 2, since it's quite complicated.
Yeah, I mean, this ties into our plan, right? Origin does not want, we don't want to be in charge of, allocation, doing all the fund management. We want this to be a community exercise. So getting governance in place first, and then building the right tools and UI for people in the community to actually say, hey, we should be, why are all the funds in Compound? We should be, let's move them into Convex. That's the kind of thing we want our community to be weighing in on. And, so our job is to create the tools for our community to do that.
All right. Well, I think that was a good walkthrough of potential priorities for the upcoming sprint. We should shift to, excuse me, we should shift to marketing discussion, I think, unless anyone had any closing thoughts about engineering priorities. Let me know. Max, do you want to give us an update on marketing topics since last week?
Yeah, so not a whole lot to report on, but we've started optimizing our ad mix based off the initial responses that we got to the campaign last week. We created a few ads for things like Twitter and Facebook and put it out there because we've never done a paid ad campaign before, so we're just on tracking conversions. And then we're just basically going to be ramping that up over the next week. So I think we'll have more to report then. But I guess in terms of stats, like this month, our tweets have been performing a little bit better than average. And I would say that's probably due in large part to the liquidity mining campaign and just OGN doing well in general.
Cool. Anybody else have anything to add on the marketing side? Or any questions or comments?
I have one thing, but it's not really related to OUS, it's more this call.
Go for it.
Yeah. So we're maxed out at the moment. It looks like that function that Discord added worked all right. So we're limited to 25 people if we keep with this like video call thing on Discord. So maybe we have to make a decision if we want to move to doing the stages or something that would support more people. But the downside to that would be we can't do the screen sharing.
Discord needs to figure out their life there.
Yeah, it sucks for us.
All right. Well, let's take that as an action item to figure out where to move to. We've tried different things from Google Hangouts to Zoom to Discord. I think Discord's been working the best. Pretty frustrating that there's that limit. Maybe we can see if there's some way to get them to raise that. That would certainly be preferred. But if not, we should just pick another platform to try.
Yeah, and then I mean, if we can't stream our screens, then like Twitter Spaces maybe is one option, but it's still probably not as good as Discord.
I wonder if in the process of experimenting with different platforms, we might just plan better. And this basically something I can help do is if we know several days in advance that we're not going to have a demo, we're not going to be sharing our screen, then it might be a good opportunity to experiment with Twitter Spaces or the other Discord stage thing. I'd hate to bounce back and forth between platforms depending on what the agenda is, but at least in the short term, it might be a good opportunity to try that.
Yeah, Discord stages thing works well for what it is. Other than losing the video, it certainly supports lots of people, and it just works, and everybody's already here, and you'll see it in the side just like what we're currently doing. So that'd be minimally disruptive to try using that again. But yeah, it's just the big downside of no screens, no video.
All right. Well, Max, do you mind being the owner of figuring out where we'll be next week?
Yep, no worries.
Good deal. Thanks. And there was something you mentioned. Ad campaigns. I think we had. We had an action item last week for Coleman to reach out to Zapper or Zerion or any other competing dApps to see if there might be a creative ad opportunity there. Coleman, did you happen to get very far with that yet?
So a lot of these conversations kind of go the same way. I reach out to them on Discord and don't really get much of a response, or there's some community manager who's not really a decision maker replying to me. So I can keep pushing on that, but if you know anyone at these teams who isn't like a community manager type, that might be easier if you have those lines of conversations open previously from other things.
Yeah, we can definitely help on Zerion. Sorry, I didn't realize you weren't on an existing thread there. I'm not sure about Zapper. I think we probably talked to them about integrations before, but I don't know if I personally was on those threads. Josh or Kay, maybe?
I'll check my email history. It's just easier to do on Discord, but you get much worse response rates.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've definitely got a thread with Zerion in Telegram and an email, so I'll follow up on that for you. Okay, let's see. I don't think anyone added their name to the agenda to introduce themselves, but now would be a great time if you want to say hello. Let us know how you ended up here and what you're working on.
Yeah.
Yep, Josh?
Before we get to that, we had some comments on the governance proposal around moving to Convex. And Oren, I hope I'm saying that correctly, had some interesting questions and proposals that I thought would be worth discussing here as a group. And it's really around like our strategies for locking rewards on Curve or Convex versus our current strategy, which is to sell every reward token we get and immediately reinvest it in stablecoins. Any chance Orion's here, by the way? Okay.
I don't think so,
yeah. But anyway, wanted to throw this out there. I think it's worth discussion, particularly as we're using Convex. I think certainly for like the immediate future, we should deploy the Convex strategy we have, get the increased APY from that. But certainly we've seen other yield farming vaults take a strategy of locking some portion or even all of the rewards that they're getting, so that they get higher APYs in the future. So curious to get everyone's thoughts on that, and if that's something we should consider doing.
Well, that's a little bit of a change from our current philosophy. I think Convex may be or Curve Convex may be the exception that we could make there, because it's very much set up like a battleground on those, and with the boosting stuff, and you do get your tokens back. It's not a permanent lock. So even if we were locking them, and it could be potentially yield farther in the future. So I think they have more a fundamental thing. The question is, if we don't have enough of them, are we always second place and it doesn't really matter much, or so we have to actually, us as the community have to go do the math to see how that would likely work out in different scenarios with different TLVs and different amounts locked in compound and different performance from that token price in the future. But I think it's worth considering with convex compound/curve.
Yeah. How concerned are you about code complexity if we do that? Certainly, it's different from what we have right now. If we're, holding it, and certainly we'd want to have, we want to put some sort of backdoor where we can control the voting rights for that locked CIV or locked convex. How bad is that going to be?
Probably a medium, probably not horrible. Convex/curve, the code ends up being reasonably simple. The documentation tends to be horrible. So most of the effort is figuring out what it's doing, and then at that point, you can write clean code to interface with it. So I guess it'd be a medium, not simple. It wouldn't concern me that it's too complex.
Okay. Sounds like maybe the next step there is just to make the spreadsheet of different scenarios and see how the numbers shake out, and try and figure out if that's something it's worth doing.
Thanks for covering all that, Josh. I confused that part of the agenda with, I think it was the same person in Discord proposed the buffer thing. So glad we covered all that.
Yeah. The other proposal he had was that we use, instead of putting our backing funds into free pool, that we put it into the OUSD pool instead. Obviously, that has the benefit of increasing the size of that pool and the trading fees on that pool. Obviously, if we did it, if we did it that way, it would skew our pool very heavily towards the free CRV side of it, unless we were also adding OUSD into the mix. But that is kind of tricky to do, since it inherently adds leverage to the system if we were to be doing that. But an interesting idea nonetheless. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts on how we could do that, or rejigger it in a way where we're getting extra benefit out of funds that we're deploying into convex. Guess not. Let's go on to introductions then. As Micah was saying, for anyone here who wants to introduce themselves, we'd love to hear who you are, how you found us, and any thoughts you have on OUSD or origin story for that matter as well.
Always next week, if you decide that you would like to say hello, we'll be here or somewhere, depending on where Max decides to take us. But at the same time, every week. I think that is the last of what we had on the agenda. I captured a few action items. Let's see here. Josh, you were going to follow up on why Magic Internet Money is beating us on the bribe campaign. Coleman and/or Josh to keep tabs on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko to make sure they show accurate trading numbers and user counts, I think is what the other thing was. Josh, you were going to see if Dune Analytics indexing is now working. And then Daniel to review the on-chain governance contracts to see which one we might use. And then there was one other thing there at the end. Oh, I think, Josh, you were going to write up a proposal for getting rid of the buffer or taking it to zero.
Yes.
I guess getting rid of it was the idea there, to simplify the code.
Yes.
Okay. In other news,
Yeah.
Oh,
one more thing I forgot to add on that. We're being listed on Immunefi, the bug bounty platform for DeFi and crypto stuff, probably in the next hour or so. And this is basically our current bug bounty program, but they have a lot of people looking for bug bounties, and so this will increase the reach of it and make it a lot easier to administer, both for us to administer and for people to submit bugs. So that's coming up in the next hour, I think.
Very cool. Sounds like an announcement that I should put at the beginning here. The other thing I was going to say is that I've been reminding myself for like 8 weeks now to write up some little tooltip content on the DApp, and I actually did start to go doing that. And then I realized that like we've removed several of the elements that were going to have tooltips or help icons. The 3 that remain are the, what do we call it now? Pending yield, I think. Haven't gotten any questions lately about what that is, so I'm wondering if we still need something there to explain that. Then the other 2 that we never added were on the, when you open the little gear icon drop-down thing, we have the price tolerance that's configurable along with the gas price. I assume gas price is self-explanatory, but we do get questions about why, well, I don't think it's obvious that price tolerance is referring to slippage, but of course slippage is not exactly the right word when you're talking about the vault contract. And so that's where we get questions sometimes about why is there any flexibility in the pricing on the vault. So anyway, just main question is, you guys feel like we should add little explainers to some of those elements, or just let it go?
I think we can let you off a hook and let it go, and we can add them back in if we hear things that are confusing. A simple thing we could do is just add an explanation of what the boost is to the analytics page. That's probably the question I see the most frequently that people don't get.
For sure.
And that could, we can just add a sentence there that explains that. I think it would help a lot of people.
I wonder if we should make like a tiny video explaining how the OUSD yield process works, just because that is the number one question on Discord. I've been fielding a couple of those a day, and it's a fantastic thing, and people are really happy when they understand it. But feels like we can communicate that better, I guess, both in app and maybe just as a video, because then it can be shared to people who aren't using OUSD as basically marketing, kind of 2 birds, 1 stone.
Yeah. And we have to assume that for every person who asks, there's another 10 that never even bother to ask a question. So, having it right there in the DApp and easy to consume would be great. But Daniel, thanks for offering to make a video as well. Appreciate you volunteering.
I was just going to do it. Here you have a little forewarning now.
Love it. Looking forward to that video.
Sure that Aaron would love to help with any production that needs to be done there, but it doesn't need to be too fancy. Thinking back to the DHH Rails blog video, that one was very effective without any production. All right. Well, I think that covers all the action items that I had and everything that we had on the agenda. Are there any closing thoughts or questions before we go? Besides Josh and myself are muted, so I think we'll call it a day. Until next time.
Have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.